Welcome, everybody, to today's Intelligent Property Investor Masterclass. Man, is the market moving. We have had so much turmoil in the market with things opening up and closing down and opening up. It's a lot to keep on track of, and that's why I do these masterclasses. I do them every week, and it's all about you. It's about you becoming more intelligent in the property space, because then we don't panic, we don't make silly decisions, and we get out there and make calculated, profitable decisions. So, what's been happening? Well, let's have a look. I want to talk about the millennial migration and how it's causing a boom in one particular city at the moment. I want to talk about how the vaccine mandates are changing the Aussie job market, which is not necessarily something I'm particularly keen on, but anyway, and why the job market in 2022 is going to be really, really strong. I want to talk about why the record number of people are working two jobs, which came as a little bit of a surprise when I dug into this kind of data, and what that means for, again, property prices and the amount of money that people have in their households and things like that. Why rents are growing at a faster pace, fastest pace since 2007. So we're absolutely at an epic shortage in rentals right now. And which city is my pick of the bunch for 2022? All right, let's get into the property market first up. Now, vaccines have dominated the world press for all of last year, all of this year, and it looks like it's going to be all into next year as well. But what it means is that these mandates are actually causing a little bit of fear in the market. They're causing fear for the employers because they don't know whether they're going to get sued if they do mandate or sued if they don't mandate. And it's really causing a lot of confusion. But here's what's actually happening in the unemployment rate. Now, you can see there that we peaked obviously through 2020, and then it slowly started to come down, come down, come down. The unemployment rate peaked up a little bit more when we went into lockdown in New South Wales and for the umpteenth millionth time in Victoria. And so the unemployment rate went up a little bit. Now, the thing with this is this shows the participation rate, which hasn't been shown previously. Now, what I mean by participation rate is that those people who were full-time employed, but their hours were cut back, they weren't counted in the unemployment rates. But the job figures coming out now seem to be taking that into account, which means that we're getting a little bit of a more accurate read on the unemployment rate. Now, remember, the unemployment rate is important because the RBA has come out and said that they are going to put a benchmark on the official interest rate based on where inflation is and unemployment. So they're the two key figures that you've got to look at. Now, they're not going to do it just because we're in range this month. It's got to be a sustained level. And what they want for unemployment is they want it below 5% at a sustained level. Because what that shows is that the economy is tracking along the way you want it to. And it's not just 1 month's figures or 1 quarter's figures. It's actually heading in the right direction. So this is something to watch because obviously the job rate, it creates jobs, it creates wages, it creates more money in the household and therefore more money to go into the property market, which further exacerbates what we're seeing in pricing right now. So this chart here shows you the proportion of Australians working two jobs. Now, this has come as a little bit of a surprise. I mean, you can see there how it's been bumping up and down, but through COVID, it really bounced up. And I think a lot of that also has been due to the participation rate, where people have had their hours cut back in their normal job, so they started doing other things like Uber delivery and courier jobs and all of those other sorts of things that were plentiful around at that time because everybody was ordering online. So the job ads are actually up though. So this is something we're looking for a sustainable indication as to where we're going. So job ads are up at a 13-year high. So that's a good sign. It's an absolutely good sign. We are, we're getting into a more buoyant time. We're also seeing that the postings on places like Indeed are well and truly up. And if you look at where they were if you take February 2020 as a benchmark, we're up about 80 to 81% from that period of time. So that is really, really encouraging. What it means is we were doing better than pre-COVID in our, our job market and things like that. So this is just another indication. It just shows you the postings across the state. So it's pretty much across Australia. Obviously, New South Wales and Victoria are the big states. They're the ones that employ the most people. And you can see there that in both cases, we're seeing a really strong surge up. And across Australia, of course, it's a nice steady line going up, which is what you want to see. So Australian jobs posted requiring vaccinations. This is what we're starting to see the trend of now. And you can see there the last month or so, that's what we're starting to see. Now, whether that will turn around or not, I don't know. I'm not a medical person. I don't know the answer to any of those things. With this new variant coming in and all of that kind of stuff, nobody knows. I personally don't like being dictated to as to whether you are or you aren't. I think it's something that we should take on board, and we should look at our Anzacs and things like that, and what did they fight for? Our freedoms. I just don't like being told what to do. I just feel that this is whether you do or you don't, your choice, whatever. But these mandates, I am dead against. And I normally don't make political statements, but I tell you what, I don't like the totalitarian communistic tendencies that we are getting right now in Australia. So that's my piece. Agree with me, don't agree with me, it's your call. I just don't like the mandates and having been compulsory, having to do anything. And I feel this is going to play out in the courts. And it'll be interesting to see which way the courts actually treat it, particularly if people are sacked with the mandates. And then you've got Fair Work Australia and court cases there, and it'll be a very, very interesting time. And this is why I really feel for all the employers, and myself included, because you've got, you've got mandates, and then you've got your staff who you're loyal to, and the court cases that are looming. So it'll be a very interesting time as we head into the 2022 and what happens in the court system. I think that's going to be the most telling, because it's already playing out around the world elsewhere. And you can see here US compared to Australia. You can see there, the labour force seasonally adjusted and things, and you can see how the lockdowns and everything else have kind of played out. So that last lockdown, because we're the blue line, the last lockdown there really did hurt Australia from a job market perspective. But we've recovered really, really super strongly, and that's what these figures are showing. The unemployment rate is right down, and it's consistently down. So what that means is, flowing on to consumerism, we have a very buoyant both consumer confidence and business confidence. Now, the business confidence is actually being buoyed by Christmas, because everybody seems to do better at Christmas. Obviously, there's a lot of jobs being created in and around the Christmas rush. But whether that will hold strong as we move into February is a different story, because February traditionally then kind of falls off again. And I think the RBA will certainly wait until we get over this Christmas hump. We see what's happening with the next lot of lockdowns and whatever else might come out of the South African variant. It's just a crazy world that we are living in. But what it does mean is that, and this is what I've been telling you all the way through from when this whole thing started, and I talked about cycles, and I talked about where we were at a land bank perspective. This is the normal land cycle. Now, whether it was COVID, or whether it was a stock market crash, or whether it was a war or whatever else, we were due for a mid-cycle slowdown and then an acceleration thereafter. And that is exactly what we're seeing right now. We are seeing a massive repricing of land. And as we see that, we're going to see house prices go up. And it's not finished yet, because we've got a lot of catching up to do. So things like this, the consumer confidence and everything, realistically, it kind of shows a short-term attitude in the market. It doesn't show long-term trends, even though it's great. It looks really good. It's a short-term trend. So the thing to do, of course, is be the landlord. be the one in the property seat, because you are the one then that is benefiting right across the board. Rents are going up like crazy. Values are going up like crazy. And even if, they do cool, and I expect they will, I don't think 2022 is going to see the kind of exponential growths that we've seen in 2021. I think you'll see a cooling. Do I think they're going to go down in 2022? No, I don't. But the growth won't be as massive as we have seen in 2021. So, but then the right side of the ledger here is landlords. And that is going to be exacerbated when we start to take into account all of the migrants when they start coming into Australia. So nationally, rents are growing at a faster pace, it's the fastest pace since 2008, which is when, of course, we had the GFC. It's faster rental growth is occurring coast to coast. So it's not just in one area or another, it is right across the board, including all the regional areas. Now, it's driven by the record demand for housing. That's really what we're looking at here. And you can see here, we start to have a look at rents across the board. Look at all the capital cities for housing and then for units. Now, all of them are up. The worst performing across the board, whether it's house prices or rental returns, is Melbourne. And that is because it has been the most locked down city in the world. And that is something that I have been talking about for ages, and how Daniel Andrews is ruining Victoria. And I've been very vocal about that as well. So, but it is starting to pick up. Now, what does that mean? What it means is it's a great opportunity, because it's been held down, because it's been, locked up and all of these things. Melbourne is going to be a massive growth centre once they get over all of their hiccups. Now, I don't know how long that's going to take, but once they get over all of that, you're going to see a long-term growth in Melbourne, particularly when they open up the borders, because traditionally most of the migrants that come into Australia, I'm not talking Australia's returning, I'm talking migration to Australia, they go to Sydney and Melbourne, and both those markets will be very, very strong. But when we look at it from rents perspective, you can see what they are. The regionals are the big performers. Look at that. You've got, regional Tassie, 15% growth. Regional WA, nearly 14% growth. Even South Australia's in regional areas has got a 6.5% growth. So the regionals are really out there outperforming. When we look at the capitals, it's Darwin that's done the best. And that's really because it's the first dumping ground from coming in overseas. It's also a centre for mining, to be able to fly in, fly out and that sort of thing. And a lot of people don't plan to live there long term. So they're renting at the moment. That's why you're seeing nearly 21% increase in rents in Darwin right now. Hobart's up. Perth is up. Perth again because of the mining resurgence, and Brisbane's up. Nearly 10% there in Brisbane. So that's what we're starting to see that flow through, and that's creating extra demand in the ownership perspective, and therefore house prices going up. So you can see here, that just gives you a chart of the same thing that I showed you there before, but it actually shows you in a chart where all that is going. So vacancies are down. Now, when we look at vacancies, you can see there that nationally we're running to the September quarter or the end of September at 2.1%. But look at where the bigger numbers are. Sydney is running at 3.2. Melbourne is running at 3.9. Why is that the case? It's the case because of the unit market. Both those cities were oversupplied in apartments, particularly inner city apartments, particularly Melbourne. So it's worse than Sydney. And now Sydney's starting to take up some of that. Why is that the case? Partly students, because the students have gone home and they were the ones that were occupying a lot of those inner city apartments. And partly the new migrants coming in, because they'd come in and they'd just dump themselves there and that's where they'd be until they worked out where they wanted to live. So there's massive oversupply. Now, that's going to be an ongoing trend because a lot of people through COVID have worked out that it's okay to work from home, or at least work some days in the office and some days out. A lot of the businesses through COVID have actually decentralised. And there's not going to be the big demand for inner city apartments because I work in the city, I have to be in the city. There's a lot more decentralisation going not only through the suburbs, but also into regional areas surrounding the major capital cities, which is why we're seeing such a big surge in the house pricing and the house yields in those outer lying areas to the capital cities. Brisbane's running at about 2%, but look at the others. Darwin, 0.7%. Canberra, 0.9%. Hobart, 0.5%. Adelaide, 0.8%. Perth, 0.9%. They're massive record lows. So when we look at those vacancy rates, it's certainly showing that the demand and the yield is there and will continue to be there for some time. Just showing you a different way, that's the Sydney chart. You can see the vacancy rates coming down. There's the Melbourne chart, not as much, but again, oversupply in units. If you just took housing, it'd look a little bit different than that. Look at Brisbane. It's been going down all through COVID and before. There was a lot of migration up to southeast Queensland, and that's what this chart's really showing. Perth, vacancy rate's very low. Again, that's a mining work issue. Adelaide, I think it's a safety issue there more than anything. That people are happy to stay there, work there, all those sorts of things. So Adelaide's coming, the vacancy rates are coming down. And of course, Darwin, that's a mining story as well. So it's interesting when you look at who's moving where, and it's actually the millennials that are making the move to southeast Queensland. Now, the millennials are those born between 1981 and 1995. That's what we call the millennials. So there's a big movement up to Brisbane. Now, whether that actually lasts or not, because the trouble with southeast Queensland is we don't have enough jobs. So unless these millennials can work out how they can work, via technology and all the rest of it, which a lot of them can. Well, interesting to see how much of that actually lasts. A lot of it has just been get me out of here. I want to get out of lockdown. So, there's some analysts are predicting that the Brisbane is going to boom because of this millennial migration. Young people being drawn to Brisbane because of the affordable house pricing, but also because of lockdowns and other things. Brisbane is performing strongly as a result, and the partial indicators for Brisbane look good. So what we're seeing in Brisbane is it is definitely affordable compared to the other cities. And that's actually why I like Melbourne compared to Sydney, because of the affordability. It is still more affordable than Sydney. Now, whether that'll last for very long once we get out of Christmas and lockdowns and all those other things, it'll be interesting to see how many from the southeast Queensland go back to their destination. And I don't think it's going to be a mass migration back. I feel it's going to be suck it and see for a bit because with all of these new variants popping up and whatever else, there's still a lot of fear in the population. There's still a lot of fear in humanity right now, which is about the worst thing you can possibly do, because that actually creates anxiety, it creates stress, and that's what makes you sick, in my opinion. Obviously, there's other factors and whatever else, but it's one of the contributing factors. Stress has a massive impact on your body and its ability to be able to be strong and healthy and all of those other things. So this is Mark McKindle, and he's the one who's saying that the millennials are the ones that are pushing the pricing in southeast Queensland, and a massive move because of affordability and also lifestyle. So we'll see if he's right. I'm not disagreeing, but I'm not jumping on the bandwagon with him just yet either. So Brisbane house prices compared to Sydney, you can see where they sit. We've seen a definitely lower in Brizzy, and everybody knows that. Same thing for Melbourne. So it is an affordability issue. So what we're seeing then is where the migration's going. Now, interestingly, when you look at that chart, Sydney had a drop-off through 2013 to 2017, and then it kind of picked up a bit and it's kind of bobbed around. Whereas Melbourne, on the other hand, it's a dramatic drop. Now, given what I said before about the state governments and other things, you can see why. And that chart really shows what's going on in particularly Victoria at the moment, and particularly Melbourne. So, and Brisbane's been bouncing along and going up. So it's not a dramatic thing other than Melbourne. Melbourne has got a mass migration going on at the moment. But whether it's temporary or whether it's permanent remains to be seen. So what we're seeing is mortgages are going through the roof in the Brisbane area, and also dwelling pricing. So there's a lot more loans going out because people are buying houses. There's a lot going on. So what does all that mean? What it means is we're tracking along okay. There are some segments that are having little microeconomic explosions at the moment, but overarching all of that, I feel we're going to go into a little bit of a more controlled market, a little bit not as frantic and not have to get in and buy something, the FOMO thing going on. But it's not a reflection on demand and supply, because demand is still oversupply. But it's not going to be as frantic as we've seen previously. So there's a little bit more time to actually absorb the market and see what's going on. Now, that's particularly in some areas more so than others. But Christmas always gives a little bit of a slowdown, and then we beef up again in January, and then we slow down again in February. So just watch that. Don't panic, I think, is my overarching message in the property market. Don't panic. Be calculated in your decisions, and don't try and hang out for the last little scrap of uplift. If you're going to sell, because if you're going to sell, please do not leave your money out of the market. You must get back into the market. So the reason for that is because if you don't, you are going to see your money diminish in value, because property prices will continue to go up, although perhaps not as frantically. And unless you get your money back into the market, you are going to lose out. So you want as big a footprint in the market as you possibly can. So I was looking for a little bit of a message for the week, and I particularly like this. It says, you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. So consider, be creative in the property space. Be creative in what you do, how you do it. Always be in a deal, not just having a house. It's not just owning something and renting it out and that's the end of it. Always have it as a deal so that you can make money over and above what the market's actually doing. So in order to help you with that, I've set aside some advisors meetings. Now, they're free, they're 60 minutes long, and the advisors will go through with you where you're at, where you want to go, and what types of things we can do to help you along the way. Now, we don't sell properties, just let me get that very clear. This is not about selling your property. This is about educating you on what you can do to move forward and maximize this amazing period of history that we are in right now, with property pricing and everything else that's going on. So they're 60 minutes long. They're the real estate breakthrough sessions, and one of my advisors will be able to help you. Now, all the links are here, but you can go to iloverealestate.tv/questions/ and one of the advisors will be able to help you out on that. So look, I hope you enjoyed today's Intelligent Property Investor Masterclass. I certainly did, and I'll be back again next week to talk to you again. Bye for now.